Good evening and welcome to live coverage of the RWB International Constructors Championship here from the utterly majestic Watkins Glen International in upstate New York. I'm Rob Lomas and tonight I am joined in the commentary box by Red Sky and Damien Lowe. Evening, lads.
Good evening, Rob. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Good morning for me.
Well, oh yeah, true, because I forgot you're many hours ahead of us, ahead of Red Sky and I, and we're just coming up to the last couple of minutes of qualifying here at Watkins Glen. It's currently Marco Badowski on pole provisionally at the moment on a 1:43.8 in the McLaren 720S on one of the fastest road courses in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Also plays host to the prestigious Watkins Glen 6 hours, one of the 4 rounds of the North American Endurance Cup, along with the Rolex 24, the Sebring 12 hours, and Motul Petit Le Mans.
You're forgetting one there. The majestic 10 hours of RWB around Watkins Glen as well next weekend.
Yes, we do indeed have this as a little bit of a warm-up for you tonight as we get ready for the 10 hours of Watkins Glen this weekend, which is going to be great fun for all of us involved. It's currently Marco Badowski leading the Drivers' Championship so far, just ahead of Crawford Brown, Nathaniel Shirley, Tom Shipston, Adam Kozowski, Emo Plate, George McDonald, Josh Barton, Radek Schuller, and Wouter Vlaen. Wouter actually currently level on points with Martin Schaefer, in fact, in joint 10th place. As we get ready for round 6, the clock has finished counting down. We're currently looking at Sebastian Erdmann in the Aston Martin at the moment, currently P6, coming up to the timing line now and improves on his lap time, 1:44.017 to go up into P3, as Crawford Brown actually goes a smidgen quicker than Badowski by just over a tenth of a second. We're currently looking at Peter Varga in another one of the blue and yellow McLaren 720Ss, coming through the third to last corner. Heading up to the penultimate corner now. I'm only referring to it as this because, well, they don't actually have corner names. The last few corners into the final turn now. Gets a good run through there and aborts his lap to go into the pits, though he will stay P10. I don't think there's anyone else on a lap. In fact, there is. Excuse me. There's Brian Gillisey in 18th place at the moment, who is just coming up to the end of his flying lap. He's got a Lamborghini just ahead of him. That's the 22 car, I think, maybe, of Hottie, and Gillisey goes very wide coming out of the penultimate corner there and backs out of it in a bid to not hit the back of another car. Was that Hottie? I'm not sure, to be honest. In fact, it was definitely a Lamborghini. It looks as if it was may have been the 22, but can't quite confirm that just yet.
Otto usually drives a purple Lamborghini.
Cheers for that, Damien. Yeah, don't think that was Hottie then. That might have been one of the other Lamborghinis. In fact, if I click driver lineup, I can actually find out. So I don't think it was Damien Vilk, so that narrows it down to
Might have been Brooke.
It might have been, actually. Yes, you're right. I think it might well have been Brooke, because Dan Marchant being the other Lamborghini driver. So just waiting for everyone to get on to the grid. On the rather impressively, they all managed to fit on the little tiny straight between the third to last and second to last corner. I say impressively, they just about managed to fit. So without further ado, shall I do a quick rundown of the grid?
Be my guest.
We'll just pretend we have some grid music playing in the background. It's Crawford Brown on pole position in the number 3 Ferrari, ahead of Marco Badowski in the 45 McLaren. Sebastian Erdmann is in 3rd on the grid in the 159 Aston Martin, just ahead of George McDonald there in the 66 Lexus. Lesentin is in 5th place in the 722 Mercedes, just ahead of Nathaniel Shirley in the 25 Gazoo Racing Lexus. Adam Kwiatkowski is in 7th on the grid in the 919 Mercedes, just ahead of Wouter Vlayen in the 666 Audi. And rounding out the top 10, we've got Josh Barton in the 84 BMW and Peter Varga in the 12 Ferrari. Nigel Wood is 11th on the grid in the 77 Ferrari, just ahead of Martin Schaefer in the number 13 McLaren. Tom Shipston is in 13th in car number 60. That's a Lexus RCF, just ahead of Eddie Warden in the 1st of the Bentleys, car number 31. Atkinson is in 15th place. Toby Atkinson, excuse me, in the 112 Audi, just ahead of Ian Mackey in the 97 Bentley. Todor Kostadinov is in 17th in the BMW car number 1, ahead of Brian Gillespie in the number 15 Honda / Acura, as it would be in America, NSX. Emo Plate is a very respectable 19th place on the grid in the big Nissan GTR, with Dan Birch rounding out the top 20 in the 58 Mercedes, Emo Plate's car being car number 71. Ian Begg is in 21st on the grid in the number 17 Audi, ahead of Berno Reitzmer in the 121 Mercedes. Then it's Damien Vilk in the 21 Lamborghini, ahead of Jack Mason in the number 19. Excuse me, McLaren 720S GT3. Magnus Dahlgren is in 25th place in the number 89 Ferrari, ahead of Dan Merchant in the 78 Lamborghini, and just alongside him is Harry Hottie in one of the sister Lamborghinis, car number 22. Maddow is in 28th on the grid in the number 4 Nissan GTR, ahead of Blake in the Russell Blake, excuse me, in the number 64 Aston Martin. Johnny Lenz is in 30th in the number 7 Audi, just ahead alongside Kevin Shepherd in the number 41 Lexus. Just behind Shepherd on the grid is Alexi Gerlander in the 517 Porsche, with Chris Brook in the 23 Lamborghini and Giorgio Minga rounding out the field in the number 104 Bentley Continental GT3. How's that for timing?
Perfect timing.
Totally didn't rush that at the end there at all. As they come round through the penultimate corner now, Crawford Brown trying to warm up his tyres there on what is a fairly chilly afternoon actually at the Glen. 14 degrees air temperature and only 20 degrees track temperature. They are all just coming out the final corner now and getting ready for the green light, which goes on now, and they are heading down the long downhill run towards turn 1. Very tricky braking zone. You have to brake a little bit earlier than you might expect because of the gradient, and in fact I think everyone's actually managed to get through there safely. Touch wood. Tar very much coming up through the S's now. Fantastic sequence of corners, absolutely flat in a GT3 car, and heading down the back straight. Badowski's alongside Brown. Badowski's going to have to go the long way round those. They head onto the brakes into the inner loop. Side by side they go through here. Brown just about able to hold on ahead of Badowski. Erdmann still in 3rd, in just behind them. And Badowski trying to maybe have a little look around the outside of the outer loop there. Now they head down onto the newer section of track, the Grand Prix loop. There's Alexi Gerlander in the Porsche there. Oh, there's a GTR off in the background. That looks like plate, and there's a Aston Martin involved as well. I didn't quite catch who that was, unfortunately. They're coming now around. There's another car off just there as they head towards the toe of the boot. Long uphill hairpin. Got to be quite patient on the throttle here, and down along this relatively longish straight, and then it's hard on the brakes for what I think is actually one of the slowest corners of the track, actually, the heel of the boot. And now it is back up towards the 3rd to last corner. We're currently riding with Reitzmer at the moment in the 1-2-1 Mercedes, a big off there, one of the narrowest parts of the track. There's dearie me, there's a lot of cars.
A lot of other drivers got caught in that one.
Yeah, Gillespie was involved. I saw the Honda there. I think Begg might have been involved by the looks of things. Wrightsman's managed to jump up 5 places. Yeah, someone's gone off big time at the final corner there. There's absolutely no runoff area whatsoever. We're now looking at Martin Schaefer, who's definitely been caught up in that. Gillespie's only actually dropped 1 position, I think. He's only down in 16th. And coming up through the S's now, we're currently riding with Dan Birch in the Mercedes. I'm not sure which Mercedes went and which one of the KOTP Mercedes is clobbered the wall pretty hard, actually, coming out of the final corner. But either way, there might well be some suspension damage, and Birch's car looked absolutely evil going through the inner loop there, and I think it might well have been him, judging by the way that Mercedes was having all manner of issues and wanting to go, well, seemingly from what I could see, just about every other direction other than the one which Dan was trying to actually get the car to go. So yeah, he's got Mason just behind him and now currently riding with in fact, amongst all of that, Chris Brook actually has the fastest lap of the race at the moment in the 23 Lamborghini, up into 20th place now at the moment, as a few of the drivers further down the field have really managed to gain a lot of ground after the opening lap.
Just a little left tap there for Warden with a wall.
Yeah, Kajowski's coming in for his first pit stop, doing what he usually does, which is come in fairly early and to try and get the undercut on everyone else. I've noticed that Erdmann's dropped well down the field in the Aston Martin. He's not showing in the top 23. In fact, Brooks in as well now, so's Mad Owl. Schaefer is now up into 22nd place, Emo Plate in 23rd. So I'm wondering if Erdmann was involved in something on the opening lap of the race.
I would assume that most people would have pitted because they were involved with the lap 1 incident.
Yeah, there were quite a few incidents on lap 1, although seemingly a lot of the drivers have decided to go for the, unless they've all pitted and we can't see on the timing totem because they're all outside the top 23 at the moment. But
well, let's go over it real quick. I mean, we can see that Kozlowski pitted, we can see that Brooke pitted, we can see that Matt L pitted, we can see Shipson, Blake, Dahlgren, and Gianni Lenz.
Yeah.
Let me go a little bit further down because I still don't see all of them. Hadi is in, Begg is in, Kostadinov is in, and Erdmann is in. Everyone else stayed out. So that is a large part of the ones that...
Yeah. And, sorry, I've just noticed, actually, if we have a look back down, Gianni Lenz has actually got a drive-through penalty already, and I think someone else had a...
Go 30.
Yeah, someone else, I didn't quite catch who that was, unfortunately, who had that, but there is someone a bit further down the field who does indeed have a stop and go plus 30 seconds penalty.
Both of them must be for speeding in the pit lane.
I think one must be for speeding in the pit lane, the other must be for some kind of track limits infringement, either while...
You could still get a drive-through if it's like very slightly. Because I remember it happened to me before.
I remember there was one time at Misano, it was a good couple of seasons ago now in the Constructors' Championship, where a driver had lost control of the car, spun, and in doing so went across the grass and cut a fairly substantial portion of the track off. It was towards the end of the back straight where you have that really difficult braking zone, and yeah, there was
you get instantly disqualified for that.
Yeah, And that's what happened. The driver in question, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but got disqualified for it. So it can be done. Brook is actually in the pits again now to serve his stop and go 30. So that is going to feel like an eternity for him. Lessentin's also pitted as well in the 722 Mercedes. So Mercedes splitting their strategy by the looks of things here somewhat. In that Bertram Reitzmer have stayed out, but Kozłowski and Lessentin have come into the pits.
I just caught my eye that Team McLaren isn't doing too well here, because that's 2 cars of them that is already damaged. Because Jack Mason here just conceded a position to Daniel Merchant without fighting too much. But if you look towards that front, that car is absolutely shattered to pieces. And he's not alone in that, because you got to keep in mind Schaefer himself as well got a lot of damage out of that. That's essentially already 2 cars that are not necessarily where they want to have it. And in a fight with Lexus, that's absolutely crucial, because you got to look at Shepard, P14, then look at G McDonald, he's in P8 as well. You had a few early pitters as well on that front. You got Nathaniel Shirley, that's also in P3 currently still. I mean, this is not where McLaren wants to be at this point in the season.
Absolutely not. There's only a couple of rounds left to go as well after this. We've got Kyle Army next weekend, and we've also next Tuesday, excuse me, and then we've got the season finale at Bathurst on the 1st of November. The last time we had the season finale at Bathurst, it ended in tears for Porsche, with 2/3 of the Porsche team actually getting taken out in a big pile up on the run up Mountain
the whole
Straight.
grid got taken out.
Yes, true. Good point. Well made. Beautifully presented. You're absolutely right.
I was just the last car to leave that pile up.
And you didn't do what Esteban Trero did in the 1998 Belgian Grand Prix then, and keep your foot in and cause even more damage. So you did very well, Damien.
So I got some interesting news. Looking at the data for a minute, is we don't really have a gap that is smaller than a second at this current moment in time. The only gaps that we really have that are closing up is some people are already catching back markers here and there. Which probably has to do with the stop and goes. We're at a stage in the race, which I wouldn't have expected with 10 minutes in, is that they're all spaced out just about evenly, and now it's just about keeping your head down and pushing as hard as you can.
Absolutely. And it's such a flowing track as well, Watkins Glen, so you really have to. But it's one that does reward driver skill. I mean, there's not exactly an abundance of runoff area at most corners, if I'm being honest. Hence why it's only
a front track. Just some corners can catch you out a lot.
Oh yeah, easily, very easily. I mean, it's like I said, turn 1 and the penultimate corner in particular, an absolute 2 best corners on the track for the stewards, because they just know that track limits are going to be very much closely looked at. So currently halfway through the race, we're currently looking at George McDonald in the 66 Lexus, and now we're looking at Schaefer in the McLaren, very much the meat in between 2 slices of Mercedes-Benz bread. And Lessentin goes up the inside into the heel of the boot, and looking on board at Schaefer, he is pushing that thing as hard as he can. Remember, Schaefer, as you can tell by the little orange box next to the 13 on the timing totem on the left-hand side of your screen, it still has a little 1 in it, which means he is yet to pit, whereas both Mercedes drivers, Kozłowski and Lessentin, have. So this is not going to be good for Schaefer. I think he's trying to just hold on for as long as he can at this stage. But there is going to come a point where you're just going to have to bail for the pits and just accept that, in his case, he's going to be losing quite a lot of positions.
especially with all that damage he's taken from that one incident.
Yeah, he is going to be in the pits for a little bit longer as Kevin Shepherd gets a stop and go 30 for speeding in the pit lane. So
that'll be music in the ears of the McLaren team right now. That's absolutely something they need.
It's something Chafer needs, to be quite honest. We've got, well, Badowski's still doing well. He's in second, ahead of Nathaniel Shirley. It's a bit of traffic there, and that means that Crawford Brown has to back out, and Badowski is able to keep his foot in and goes past well before turn one, but Brown has the inside line, manages to just about barely hold on to the position there as they go through turn one. Badowski in the slipstream of the Ferrari as they head up through the S's now, almost side by side as they're coming up on the long flat out run towards the inner loop. Badowski trying to get a little bit of side draft as they head on the brakes now. Brown still able to hold on, taking a very defensive line to the point that at this rate he's probably going to be getting called up to the Scottish national team alongside Andrew Robertson and co at this rate. And Badowski still in second place. And meanwhile, this is also bringing Nathaniel Shirley into the mix, as Shirley's taken a few temps out of them on this lap so far because of these two battling. But in endurance racing, traffic giveth, traffic taketh away, and that's put simply just the way it is, and it's racing, quite honestly. Meanwhile, Kozłowski and Barton are battling away. Here's just a few tenths of a second in it between them. This is the battle for 7th place. Although both of these two might be going a bit higher up, actually, because they have both already pitted. Likes of Brown, Badowski, Shirley, Warden and Wood all yet to pit. That's the entirety of the top 5 there. There's still 3 minutes or so to go in the pit window.
It would be rather tight for them to still be able to take it, seeing as Vlian right now has a gap of 41 seconds towards Brown. So tight, but I don't think they're going to be able to get ahead of the front runners right now.
It is going to require one of the top 5 to make a fairly substantial mistake on the limiter, as they indeed go out for another lap. So the top 5 are all going to be coming in actually at the end of this lap, given, put simply, there is 2 minutes 40 odd seconds left. They're coming up towards the toe of the boot now, so having a look at roughly where they are, lap times they're doing 1:45-ish. Yeah, 45 seconds from now they are. That is cutting it so fine for these two.
That will be very tight.
There will be maybe plus or minus a couple of seconds, really, either way. So if they want to play it safe, come into the pits at the end of this lap, and, well, actually, that's only going to be Brown and Badowski, really, who could potentially stretch it for another lap. The Bentley there of Minga just off at the side of the circuit, and they both dive into the pits. They've decided that, yeah, they really should come in quickly. That's the top 3, and as well, there's Shirley just in the bottom left of the screen there. You can just about see him in shots. They all come down through the pit lane. There's Eddie Warden in as well, and Nigel Wood for good measure. So that's the entirety of the top 5 in as we speak for the mandatory pit stop and the mandatory fuel.
Has to be mentioned that Vlian currently is not far away.
Indeed, he's coming towards the final corner.
The final corner now.
Have a look on the little dancing ant screen. He's not going to be able to get ahead of Badowski or Brown. Indeed, that is Crawford. Brown still just ahead. There's Vlian coming out of the first corner now. So Vlian is actually up into, shows being in P4 at the moment in the 666 Audi, heading through the S's on board with Vlian. He's got Kozłowski right behind him through the inner loop now. Was introduced in the early 1990s to try and slow the cars down, but it's actually quite a quick chicane these days. And heading down towards the chute and up towards the toe of the boot. We're still on board with Vlian. He closed the gap there just a little bit by a tenth or so. Currently looking at Josh Barton in the 84 BMW. As there's just a few minutes left in the race here at Watkins Glen. This being the first of 2 races this evening. We have a second 40-minute race coming up. So Chris Brook has come into the pits in 26th. We're looking at Brian Gillespie at the moment in the number 15 Honda in 16th place. Now there's Dan Birch. So one of the Ferraris is right there as well. I think they're going through a little bit of traffic at the moment. There's in the background. That is in fact not traffic. That is for position between Birch and Gerlander. Gerlander going around the outside into the heel of the boot. A little bit wider than I think he would have liked there for Alexi Gerlander as they head up towards the third to last corner now, where the Porsche should have a tiny advantage over the Mercedes, given it is a relatively slow corner, that one. Through this quick left-hander and then into the final right-hander, the final corner. It's still Birch just ahead of Gerlander. There's 2 minutes left on the clock. Birch still holding on there to Gerlander. Gerlander going very wide there. It's definitely going to be a warning for track limits.
Absolutely flirting with that right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anything, he has closed up a little bit to the back of Birch's car as well. Hard on the brakes in the Porsche, down to third gear for the chicane, up into fourth midway through. I told you it was a quick old chicane, that. And into fourth for the outer loop.
Here's where it becomes interesting. The Mercedes has absolutely no pace in the second sector. So everything is to play for the Porsche here. All that Alexi has to do here is hold on close enough and make the pass and dive somewhere in the corner. The Mercedes really doesn't have an answer to the Porsche speed in this sector.
No, absolutely not. And there's one of the Audis there as well, I think.
Is that not for position?
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah, cheers. That's thanks. That is Gianni Lenz in the number 7 Audi. Gerlander having another look around the outside at the heel of the boot. Marchant, oh sorry, Birch, excuse me, holding on very, very well there on the inside line. Gerlander having another little look as they come through the third to last corner. Quite know where the leaders are. There will be. Oh, cheers, Damien. So we will have another lap of this, which is something I don't think Dan Birch really wanted to hear. That he's got another lap to try and keep a very rapid Porsche behind him. The gap going back up to just 0.3 of a second. Riding on board with Gerlander in the Porsche, now car number 517 as they come up through the S's for the final time. Gerlander not quite as close as he was last time round as they head down this long straight here. Breaking it around the those distance boards. By the way, this being America, they don't use meters, they use yards to determine how close the markers are from the corner. So it's not 400 meters, 500 meters, it's 500 yards, 400 yards, etc.
Oh, I thought they were in feet.
Or feet, actually. Yeah, that checks out slightly better. Meanwhile, the checkered flag has been waved at the front of the field. We're going to still keep on with this battle here as, if anything, Birch is looks to be closing up a little bit towards Gillisy in the NSX. Gerlander is going to try and get a double slipstream. Hard on the brakes now into the heel of the boot for the final time and not quite able to get it done. Gerlander running out of options here to try and get the position. Meanwhile, Crawford Brown has won the race for Marco Wdowski, Nathaniel Shirley, Wilder Lane, Josh Barton, Lessington, Warden, Atkinson, Mackey, Wood, Vargo, McDonald, Kajabski, Vilk, Reitzmer. And now we've got this battle here. Gerlander has a look up the inside and there's contact, and that puts Birch into the wall there at the final corner. So Gillisy is just about going to hold on to 16th place, and Gerlander gets the position there to go into P17. You can see the damage on the front of the Mercedes as well of Birch's car. March at 19th, Emo Plate 20th, just ahead of Mad Owl. Chafer in 22nd, and it's going to be Mason, Shipston, Blake, Shepard, Dahlgren, Lenz, Hottie, Kostadinov, Minga, Erdmann, and then we've got the drivers who have had issues. Mason has gone for the, I believe I can fly approach into turn 1 there by the looks of things. Currently looking at Russell Blake at the moment in 25th place in the Aston Martin. Brooke is in 33rd. Ian Begg rounding out the field there in 34th in Audi car number 17. And Blake is going to cross the line now.
I think the stewards might need to look into that incident with Gerlander and Birch.
Yeah, I fear so too. That was not necessarily what you want to see in a final corner.
I'm quite... yeah, I'm fairly certain that is probably going to be getting discussed next Monday. Yeah, I'm fairly certain of it because, well, the fact it happened to be caught on the broadcast as well means that there's going to be no shortage of material for the stewards.
So that does mean that we have Brown with 30 kilos, Badowski with 20 kilos, and Shirley with 10. On the fastest circuit of the calendar this time about.
Yes, this is going to be interesting to say the least. Absolutely 100%. We are just getting ready now for the having a little bit of a break between races as everyone is getting ready, and
so,
just it's
I've been waiting for this, Rob. I've honestly been waiting for this part. See, the thing is that this is Watkins Glen. It's Watkins Glen mid-autumn. And you know what Watkins Glen is not at night in mid-autumn? Warm. It is 11 degrees Celsius.
It is what we would describe in the UK as a bit nippy.
Right. So
to put it mildly.
You want to know a little fact here, seeing as I've been co-organizing the CC. I've been supporting Damien Wilk and everything. And at the start of the season, just before we started, we had this really weird idea that nobody really knows, is that we decided it might be interesting to just grab the weather from a week before and do it. Now, we didn't want too many rain races because we weren't certain, you know, if we were gonna like go with the calendar, if it rains every single time, that would have been ridiculous, right? So far, there's only been one rain race on the calendar, and it's been real weather all the way through, and that was Spa. Now, I actually made a mistake, so these boys can be really happy, because what it was supposed to be was 8 degrees ambient right now.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely t-shirt, hoodie, and a jacket weather.
And that was midday. So around now, I would guess it would have to be 4 to 5 degrees. I've been helping some drivers on the grid with their tire heating issues. And I can tell you, there's a few cars. I'm not going to spoil here right now who it is because it might give some advantages. There are some cars here with their brake ducts fully closed. Their PSIs are completely fine, but they can't reach 70 degrees Celsius in their tires, which means their tires are cold even though they're on the correct pressure. So this is going to be an interesting race. But I would have loved if it would have been just that bit colder and I didn't make a configuration issue.
You utter sadist.
I can confirm that my tires were 70 degrees Celsius when I was doing the practice race yesterday.
So here's the thing. We've been following real weather so far, and we've only had one wet race, which is honestly fucking amazing in my opinion.
Yes, although there is still plenty of time for that to change. Python Racing in the YouTube chat is saying that 11 Celsius is string vest weather. I mean, in some places in the UK, yes, that is considered quite warm for this time of year, I will admit. Granted, it's a damn sight further north compared to where I am in the southwest, but...
That's all fine and well. You know, you're a human being. You can decide what you want. I can tell you one thing. A race car, it's fast in 11 degrees Celsius, but the rubber doesn't like it very much. It's like an abusive relationship. The car is going to beat the other shits out of the rubber. It's going to slide. It's going to grind. It's going to be nervous. But what it's not going to be is compliance.
No. Meanwhile, the drivers are all being very compliant with usage of headlights, which is understandable given that there is absolutely no ambient light, but the green flag has been waved. There's not even any start lights here, so we're relying on a marshal, and it's a long run down the hill to turn one in some very, very cold cars. Heading up through the S's now. It's still Crawford Brown side by side with Marco Badowski. In a little bit of an incident in the background, I think car number 159 has been involved in something. Some of that's Erdmann, although Erdmann's still showing as being in P3, so I don't quite know. So maybe just a little bit of side-to-side contact
back there. That is
and there's, oh dearie me, there is an almighty accident in the background there. Erdmann has gone flying off stage left on the run into the inner loop, and oh dearie me, there is a scattered all over the track. There was actually a very similar incident
coming up. Yep, Shipston. Oh, Shipston is off.
Yeah, there's been more carnage on the opening lap of the race. It's always the second race for some reason, which has been total anarchy in the first couple of laps.
It's not hard to explain. You see, the second race is a bit longer, but the second race almost always takes place at night. I don't think there's any question about why there's more chaos there. It's just dark. The drivers can't see as well.
Visibility has been reduced significantly.
Yes, but then again, modern headlight technology these days is nothing short of fantastic compared to what it used to be.
Well, I mean, Rob, you haven't driven in a while, okay? Let me explain to you how this goes. You sit in that cockpit and you're looking towards the left of the track and you can't see your brake markers that are normally there. See, we try to look outside of the racetrack for those brake markers. These drivers are not seeing them, which means they also have no reference point when they go into a corner while there's 20 cars in front of them. They're driving blind and they're just relying on the headlights in front. All it takes is for one person to brake a little bit too late and the entire accordion effect is going to set in, and everything's going to happen is they're going to squeeze into each other and then they're going to crash.
Yeah, meanwhile, we've got Atkinson, Dahlgren, Begg. I think we've got a few other cars in the pits. Actually, quite a lot of cars in the pits at the moment.
At least a third of the whole grid.
Basically, well, Giorgio Minga's currently in 20th place at the moment in the 104 Bentley, and he, last place driver at the moment not to have been had to call into the pits to have repairs enacted. Of course, this being outside of the pit window as well is going to make it even more cooling, as there's a big off there for Chris Brook, and so looking at the inner loop, a bit of contact there with one of the Audis. Oh, dearie me.
Lens.
I think that you're right, that was Lens, and Yeah, that was a really big hit there into the Armco at the end of the inner loop. So at that point, you're just grabbing fourth gear at that point as well. It is properly quick. So I'd imagine both of those two are going to be heading into the pits.
Plus, when you're hitting that curb on that chicane, you might be like flying even.
Yeah, it's, well, annoyingly, it's the only way you can
control until you're like in the middle of the track.
Yeah, it's also unfortunate. It's the only way you can really take that corner quickly as well, is you really have to go hard over the curves. Meanwhile, there's a few drivers, well, basically almost everyone involved in that opening lap pile-up. It's very reminiscent of something that actually happened in the, I think it was Porsche Cup North America, back in the day, before it became Porsche Carrera Cup North America. And there was a massive pile up there, if I remember correctly, at the S's. Took out a large number of cars, and a couple of drivers ended up going to hospital for a checkup, if I remember correctly. Glen's coming into the pits in the number 7 Audi, which is going to be to the surprise of absolutely nobody after the impact he's had with the barriers at the inner loop. Currently with Giorgio Minga at the moment. And this could be some very good points here for a number of drivers, because they were able to stay out of trouble, at least on the opening lap, which is why Minga's up in 17th place. Barton's dropped down a few positions. I think he's down in 16th at the moment. Jack Mason there in 15th place in the McLaren. You got Chafer is in 9th. Erdmann's dropped a few positions in the Aston Martin. He's down into P8 with Vlaen in just ahead of him. In fact, they've just swapped positions, in fact, so Erdmann's back up into P6 and Vlaen has just dropped down to P7, excuse me. As they head down the pit straight once more. Harry Hottie is also in the pits in the number 22 Lamborghini and has been for about the same amount of time as Gianni Lenz, so I'm guessing Hottie has been involved in an incident somewhere that has caused a fairly substantial amount of damage to the 22 Lamborghini. We still look at Josh Barton in 16th place, just on the back of Mason, who himself is right on the back of Gerland. In fact, Mason's getting past Gerland easily before they get on the brakes for the inner loop. So Jack Mason is now up in 14th place. Gerland down to 15th, and Barton looking to try and find a way past the Porsche. Barton in the green BMW M4 GT3. The news that is going to please the drivers absolutely no end. It has dropped down to 10 degrees now.
Did somebody say just keep the tire blankets on?
Well, you might not have grip, but at least he'll have tyres that are
nice and
sort of warm, yeah.
Yeah, comfortable with a marshmallow in their cup.
Absolutely, that sounds good to me.
That's something I haven't had in a really long time.
Yep, same here actually, come to think of it.
Given that it's never cold where I live.
No, you have the, well, you live in near, not too far from the equator, I think, so the temperature is fairly constant year round, unlike in the UK, for example. I've just noticed that Crawford Brown's dropped down to P10.
Yeah, I just went up as well. I took a look at the timing screen. I don't really understand what happened here, because he hasn't pitted either. He's down 9 positions.
His last lap was a 1:46.8 and his best was a 1:44.9.
Oh,
so
I have a lap here. Lap 4 was 2:02.3. So that's 17 seconds off of pace.
Yeah, he must have either gone off somewhere.
Well,
or
let's inspect the car real quick, because I don't really see any damage.
Neither do I. To be fair, it's quite hard to actually spot damage. Really, we need the other Ferrari, which I think is that of Nigel Wood, to be a bit closer so we can actually see kind of, you know, the rear diffuser on that Ferrari.
Is that Nigel?
Oh no, sorry, that is yeah, the car just behind Crawford Brown is Wood. It's the silver, blue, and red car.
No, it doesn't seem like there's any damage here.
That is an... yeah.
Ferrari might be Dahlgren.
Yeah, well,
it's
Dahlgren's
Dahlgren.
just in front. And then we've got Brown and Wood. Brown being quite some distance ahead of Dahlgren and Wood, as both of those two were involved in the incident, shall we say, on the opening lap at the S's. The pit window not open just yet, although that should be happening fairly soon, I'd imagine. Coming up to 10 minutes into the race. We're looking at Schaefer at the moment, now with Ian Begg. Yeah, Wood's all the way down in 30th, so some quick drivers down there who got caught up in the carnage, shall we say. Let's put it very diplomatically.
Oh, as the Aston Martin there just goes a little bit too far off. Doesn't seem like he has any damage.
Yeah, not sure which Aston Martin that is.
That should be, from what I can tell, Sebastian Erdmann? Can that be right?
I think that could well be Erdmann. Erdmann's in the top 10 still. And then there's the McLaren there, which I think is Schaefer?
Yeah, that is Schaefer. So to explain what we're watching here is we're on board with Peter Varga, who's in P20. And you have Schaefer racing in 7th with Erdmann in 6th. So that's definitely a battle for position in front of him here. But he himself is not a part of it. However, he does have Damien Wilk behind him, who is relatively close. And definitely in range to strike if he were to just, you know, get a good corner exit here.
Yeah, get a good corner exit. Massive flames getting shot out the back end of the McLaren there of Varga as Schaefer goes a bit wide, shall we say. And in fact, Kostadinov's just come into the pits from 13th. He's showing his 13th at the moment, but he's just come in anyway, so...
He teleported into the pits.
Ah, right, okay, cheers, Damien. That, unfortunately, says to me that he's had a game or hardware-related issue, unfortunately, for Todor Kostadinov. So I fear that might be the end of the evening for him, unfortunately. Currently on board with Sebastian Erdmann in the Aston Martin. Schaefer really closes up on braking for the toe of the boot there. And then heading down the straight and in towards the heel of the boot. Aston Martin does appear to have the legs on the straight though, and Schaefer is driving a car which looks at best recalcitrant. And at worst looks absolutely evil to drive. So, yeah.
Especially on the cold track.
Yeah.
The corner might be even more slippery.
Yeah, Schaefer is...
So, to go over a few interesting stats here, Schaefer is actually improving his lap time every single lap, except for this one. So, we're driving about a 145.3, so he's definitely closing up on Erdmann. He's also having the better on him in Sector 1 and Sector 3, so there's definitely some overtaking opportunities, but Schaefer doesn't seem to be able to get the Sector 2 together to make a move.
Oh, there's an off just ahead of them. Car number 41 has gone off, is back underway now though, I think, and unless it's teleported into the pits, I'm not 100% sure, but the pit window has opened, in fact, and within about 2 or 3 seconds of the pit window opening, George McDonald was already in the pits in the 66 Lexus for his mandatory pit stop. So that was some very, very good timing indeed from him. Schaefer is still on the glue to the back end of that Aston Martin.
Really hunting for that opening, trying to find a little bit of a gap, trying to force the mistake on Ertmann, knowing that he doesn't quite have it. You can see it here again. He's slowly losing him in sector 2, but Ertmann probably already has it on the back of his mind that he can't lose Schaefer here. He just can't. There's no way out for him. He knows he has to battle that entire position. True. Now comes the interesting question, though. If you're Ertmann, if you're Schaefer, who pits first? There is an opportunity here. There's a lot of space. There's a lot of gaps. You could take the gamble and try to pit early, try to get an undercut over an overcut. Whatever you do, though, I don't know if it's the smartest thing to be battling as closely as they are, because they're losing a lot of time. And as you can see, Schaefer going wide. They're getting their track cuts in. Ertmann pulling in, Schaefer pulling in as well.
Mason pulling in as well, I think. No, sorry, that's Varga, excuse me, never mind. Just saw McLaren. Oh, that was, yep, well done, Rob. And
don't worry. It's practice for next weekend.
It's practice for the end of next week's race when it's going to be dark and we're having to try and guess which car's which just by the headlights. Which, like I said earlier, modern headlight technology is absolutely brilliant these days. Unfortunately for the commentators, you can't actually tell which car's which because you just see nothing but white. In fact, I remember...
White and red.
Yeah. In fact, I remember in...
some colourful auxiliary lights.
Yep. I remember Ben Collins wrote a book and he did a whole page dedicated to what it's like looking in your mirrors at Le Mans at night, and it was just a plain blank page. Because you just cannot see anything apart from headlights. So, yeah, it's definitely a tricky one for the drivers, but for the drivers taking part in this race and the Watkins Glen 10 hours in the RWB International Endurance Championship on Saturday, including yourself, this is going to be some very good practice for the end of the race when it's most likely going to be just as cold as this. Yep.
Schaefer does seem to have managed to come out on top of that pit stop.
Yes. Schaefer's actually currently the first place driver of those who haven't pitted yet. I don't think he'll be in the lead of the race because the gaps between him and Badowski is simply too big at the moment. I mean, Schaefer's currently 10.5 seconds behind Mad Owl, who's doing
51 seconds. 52 seconds, actually, and for that matter.
He's 51, 52 seconds behind Badowski. He's got 10 and a bit seconds to go between himself and Mad Owl, who I know hasn't pitted yet, but doing an absolutely smashing job in the big Nissan GTR, which is not the easiest car to drive around any circuit. Although, thankfully, Watkins Glen is sufficiently fast and flowing enough that the dynamic shortcomings of the GTR are sort of mitigated to a degree. Okay, maybe not quite as much as they are at somewhere like Monza, for example, but it shouldn't be too uncompetitive. And Al doing a very good job indeed, I must say. As McDonald in the 66 Lexus sets the fastest lap of the race.
And what a lap that was, 144.490. That's the fastest so far.
Yeah, quickest lap of the race so far, 1.5 seconds behind Shirley in 10th place. And heading into this round, if I click on results, yeah, Shirley is currently a bit higher up in the championship actually than McDonald is. Shirley's currently P3 and McDonald is P7, although that was after Shirley had his technical issues in race 1 at the previous round at Clota. but well and truly made up for it in race 2. So really, the Lexus lads ought to be on the phone to each other, trying to help each other move up the field.
Yeah, and there doesn't really seem to be an answer by Lexus for McLaren right now. Badowski is 6.8 seconds ahead of Mercedes, of Kozlowski, so there's no real catching him here, and that's with 20 kilos of ballast. I'm absolutely flabbergasted. This car should be a boat right now, and instead he's managing 5 very, very fast laps. His average over the last 5 laps in this race alone was a 145. That puts him about 200 of a second on average quicker than anyone else on the field.
Yeah.
That's an insane consistency.
Yeah, there is a reason why Marco Badowski is a gold-rated driver.
I have to take back my words. His average is a 144.8. It just went down again. Yeah, nobody has an answer for the man.
He just set a 145.2.
Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal pace in the McLaren. McLaren's a very aero-dependent car as well, and there are a lot of quick corners here, so I'm not too surprised that a car that should be fairly quick around here, with arguably one of, if not the quickest drivers in the field, and looking at how the championship has played out so far this season, you could put a very good argument in that he is the quickest driver in the field. It's not too much of a surprise to me that he is at the top of the standings, both in this race and in the Drivers' Championship. Going to be a bit of good news there for McLaren as they attempt to try and close the gap to Lexus. In fact, the highest placed Lexus is only P10, and that's Shirley. Mercedes in 3rd could actually leapfrog
Next,
I might think it's going to be very close. Yeah, it's going to be close, I think, between Mercedes and Lexus in the standings after tonight's race. Is currently looking quite good for Mercedes, with 2nd and 3rd for Adam Kozlowski and Mark Lessentin. Kozlowski in the 919 and Lessentin in the 722.
Without any offense meant towards Watkins Glen, because I absolutely love the track and I love driving on it. We currently have the same issue we had earlier, is all cars are evenly spaced away from each other with no real battles going on as far as I can tell. And all that I keep thinking about is, man, what do I miss Coda? At least for watching.
I'd take Watkins Glen any day of the week over Corsa, quite honestly. I think I made my views on that track.
It might have been because of the first lap incident that's like spread out.
Yeah. Well, even then you'd expect like the rear of the pack to be like much closer to one another and fighting. I mean, if you look back at last week, just for last week, right? Like where we went to Circuit of the Americas, there was battles all throughout the field. Right now, they're all just very evenly spaced.
Warden, you say that. Warden is currently just under a second behind Harry Hottie at the moment and is closing the gap a little bit in the big Bentley, a car which we sadly never got to see race in the IMSA WebTech Sports Car Championship. And as soon as we say that Eddie Warden's closing the gap on Harry Hottie, he goes into the pits to try and get the undercut.
Rob, you and your commentator's curse.
I'm bloody brilliant at it, aren't I?
I don't know what it is. It's not me. Every single time, it's you. When it happens, it's always you. It's not the cameraman's curse. It's always the commentator's curse.
What can I say? Yep, journalists just doing what journalists do best, i.e. say one thing only for the exact opposite to happen. As per usual. Yep. Oh dear, I'm sorry.
Now here is a battle I want to watch. Audi v Nissan. Germany versus Japan.
Yes, and what has to be considered here is that Glen has already pitted.
You know what that tells me?
Glen is effectively about 40 seconds up the road.
Yeah, no, that also tells me Matt Al is a very intelligent driver. I don't think Matt Al is going to fight this. He's
No, I don't.
Line.
I don't think Al is. I mean, he's obviously going to defend a bit because racing instinct, obviously. But Al's not the sort of driver to make any late moves in the braking zone, and Glen is on the inside as they head down into Glen has the inside out, knowing that he does have to still make his mandatory pit stop within the next lap or two. Doesn't put up too much of a fight, and Glen moves up into 4th place in the 666 Audi. Johnny Lenz and Ian Mackey both in the pits at the moment. Currently looking at Ian Begg in 23rd place in the number 17 Audi with Peter Varga.
There.
Yeah, I think he might well have.
Yeah, he definitely hit the wall there.
Varga going. He's trying to go around the outside, still holding on. Begg does give him racing room there, does push him out into the end. Varga, you. Oh, dearie me. Dearie me. Bit of a nudge there, and in fact, actually, Ian Begg, the little bit of tarmac he went over there, Begg's car is absolutely smashed to pieces. He's just simply trying to get that back to the pits now. You can see the damage on the windscreen. It's going to be interesting if we can stay on board with him. It'll be interesting when we get out of the outer loop to see if he's how much steering lock he's having to.
Yeah, the steering's a little off. Not a lot, but a little.
But it's enough, and yep, I think he might be coming in at the end of it.
But you can just tell as well that the back of the car is just over-rotating at this point. He's lost a lot of aero. There's not a lot of stability left on the car. That is definitely going to be looked at by the stewards.
Yes, the amount of stability on that car is more akin to Bambi on ice or me after about 7 or 8 pints. It's basically the same thing. So yeah, not brilliant at the moment. Although he was quite lucky that it happened where it did in a way, because there was a little bit of extra tarmac there from the small chicane they put in for the 1975 US Grand Prix, and in fact it was on the part of the Watkins Glen track for all the other US Grand Prix here at the circuit up until 1980. And yeah, so he did get quite lucky that it happened where it happened, and he did have a bit more room there. Badowski is in the pits. He's got 45 seconds on Lessentin at the moment, and he should come back out in the lead, I'd imagine. George McDonald with the fastest lap of the race so far in the Lexus. There's a MO plate there in 11th place at the moment, with a McLaren right behind him. As Modal's come out of the pits in 12th. Damien Vilk in the pits as we speak at the moment. And Badowski exits the pits and still has the lead of the race, as Lessentin has just gone across the start-finish line, in fact. So the gap obviously reduced a bit, but
it's still really big.
Yeah, it's still fairly big. Lessentin is still going through the S's now as Badowski goes through the timing split. So yeah, there is a fair old gap between them. It's 9.4 seconds. Yeah, so that devastating stint from Badowski in terms of just the pure pace has set him up quite nicely here. Meanwhile, we've got the two Mercedes teammates, Mark Lessentin and Adam Kozłowski, second and third. There's not an awful lot between them at the moment. This is where you've got to be somewhat intelligent so as not to hold each other up to the extent that Vlayen starts taking seconds out. And out of this gap. The
Vlayen
gap
still has a car in front of him.
Yeah, Vlayen does have a back marker, although I'm fairly sure that's going to be closed up as Mason is battling away with Gerlander. Gerlander making good use of the Porsche and its natural advantage as a car. Car number 17 is off, I believe, at the toe of the boot, hence the yellow flags, because the obviously having to wait for a gap. Though at this rate, it's still showing as being that, so
Might have spun.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and is trying not to come back on track in front of another car. We're going to try and see if we can spot who it is from the helicam.
No, they went back to the
He
pits,
just
whoever
teleported
it
to the
was.
pits before
Yeah.
the camera could.
That seems that it was Beg. He has about 10 seconds in the pit, so that works out to the position.
Yeah, I think Begg was just trying to hold on in the Audi as Gerlander goes off at the heel of the boot, loses masses of time there, and they still got well, the car behind him's not for position, I should add. Next car behind Gerlander for position is Josh Barton. Barton's still a good few seconds behind him, so Gerlander still in 14th place. His last lap was a 46.3. His best lap was a 46.2. This lap is going to be a bit slower. Indeed it is. It's 48.7. And the gap is now down to just just under 6.5 seconds between Gerlander and Barton. Yeah, so that mistake there from Alexi Gerlander has cost him 1.3 seconds.
I noticed the gap between the two Mercedes have been wider.
Yeah, I think they've may well have been
They switched
chatting.
around.
I think they might have been chatting to each other and just
Might have been
saying,
team orders into play.
yeah, team orders to hold position and make sure Vlayen doesn't get past, and to try and really get a very strong, what is going to be a very strong result for Mercedes, in fact, in the constructors standings.
Gerlander, like currently already 100 of a second faster in sector 1 and about to be faster in second 2 at another 100 of a second as well.
It's also going to be good news for Kozłowski, in fact, because he's currently 5th in the, well, heading into this, he was 5th in the standings for the driver standings. So he'll be looking as if he's going to be getting P2. Shirley is in P9 in the Lexus at the moment. He's currently 3rd in the Drivers' Championship. Shipston is not even on the screen. He's wee way down the field. He was involved in the incident on the opening lap, so he's not going to be scoring too many points. So this is going to be absolutely fantastic news as far as Adam Kozłowski is concerned.
Lessenton has dropped to 5th.
Yeah, Lessenton must have had an off somewhere. Lessenton's got to have had an off somewhere, because Vlayen and Schaefer. Yeah, Vlayen and Schaefer have both got through, so Mark has been not involved in an incident. I don't think it's saying incident involving car 58 at the bottom of the screen, and 31. I can have a quick look at that. 58 is Dan Birch, and the 31 is, I'll keep scrolling down, Eddie Warden. So there's been a little bit of a coming together between the pair of them. Jack Mason is back in the pits. fact, something really has gone wrong for Mark Lessington, as he's dropped down to 8th now. Yeah, Erdmann's gone past. Crawford Brown's gone past. Brian Gillespie's gone past. And Nathaniel Shirley's got past as well. And this is the battle here between Shirley and Gillespie for 7th place. Shirley gets the position there way before the chicane, and the 722 car is actually showing as causing a yellow flag. Shirley, the big old corner cut there, I think made a bit of a mistake.
Could it be that Lessington didn't have enough fuel to finish the race?
I don't know. I don't know. There's a yellow flag still showing as being on the straight, and it's the 722 car causing it. So I know journalists are renowned for putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5. Well, apart from Fabrizio Romano, obviously. But I think there is some credibility to that he's either run out of fuel or has had a fairly major technical issue on his end. There's Wout of Leyen in P3. Very strong performance. He's come out of the pits. He's just reset to pits. Okay.
Did he shift down too quickly?
I don't know, to be honest. I know that someone a bit further down the field, I didn't quite catch who it was, unfortunately, has got a penalty, a stop and go 30, I think, maybe, by the looks of things. So yeah, I honestly don't know what has happened there. 1 sec, I'm just going to quickly grab one's telephone. Well, telephone, smartphone. Kaszowski still solid 2nd place. It is Begg. Sorry, yeah, I didn't quite catch who that was, unfortunately. So Begg with a stop and go 30 for presumably speeding in the pit lane. It's currently showing as being 6 laps down, so it's been a really yeah, trying character building night for him. And Ian Mackey has actually pointed out in the chat that he's never had that much damage before after an incident. 1 minute 55 seconds.
Wow.
And there were a lot of drivers who were in the pits for well over a lap with similar amounts of damage after that. So, yes, that was quite something. I think that was pretty much bordering on Bathurst.
I mean, we can look at this real quick. So the drivers we've lost so far, presumably because there was just too much damage to begin with.
Yeah.
Daniel Merchant, Russell Blake, Ian Mackey, Todor Kostadinov, Mark Lessington, Gianni Lenz, Ian Begg. Kevin Shepherd is still driving, but he is quite a few laps down.
Yeah. I thought Begg was still in the race. He only had a stop and go 30.
No, Begg has been standing still for now 7 minutes and 8 minutes now.
Okay, so
it might be that he retired.
Yeah,
or
I think
up.
That might well be the case.
Brown working his way back up, but I don't think it's going to be enough to get past this man.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, nothing short of absolutely flawless from Badowski in this race.
Not once, but twice.
Exactly, and this time round with 30 kilo of ballast and
20, because he got second last race.
Oh yeah, sorry, you're right. Yeah, my bad. 20 kilo of ballast. Crawford Brown having the the full Monty, the full 30 kilo of ballast, or about nearly half a Rob, effectively added onto the Ferrari.
Nearly half a Raw. Seeing as there aren't really any battles currently going on anyway, before the season started, me and Damien Wilk actually had the idea to go absolutely ballistic with the ballast, and it would be 160 and 40 kilos respectively, only to find out that the developers took out the possibility out of the game to do that custom ballast. So you can set it, but it will restrict itself to a maximum of 30 kilos. We really just wanted to go hard just for one season, and sadly enough that was taken away, because it would have caused a really interesting dynamic. Do you take your points in the first race, or do you sabotage yourself and go forward just to prevent yourself from getting basically near terminal levels of ballast?
Well, basically the equivalent of actually carrying a passenger.
Yeah.
In the car. It's
or,
like
an entire tank of fuel.
Well, yeah, because in Super GT in Japan, they Damien can correct me if I get any of this wrong, which I probably will. If I remember correctly, the max ballast is 60 kilo before they start restricting the fuel flow in the GT500 class. And I was watching a season preview video back in 2020. It was done by Esteban Garcia for Motorbox Radio in Argentina. He was chatting to RJ O'Connell, Genu, and Alex Garcia. And
Varga goes off into the wall.
That's a tank slap.
Yeah, that is a tank slapper, and unfortunately for Varga, that was all his own doing.
And Dallas for position with Dahlgren.
Yeah. He has a look there. Gets on the power. Bit of a correction, another slight correction there. Really working the wheel. Goes through here, gets on the curb and just loses it. Yeah, too much curve and slight over correction, and just straight up eats the barrier. You can see there, the car's a bit unsettled actually through that first part as well. So, yeah, not ideal for Varga. Meanwhile, McDonald is right on the gearbox of Sebastian Erdmann in the Aston Martin. There's only a couple of attempts in it between these two, so they are side by side. McDonald really having to go the long way round there at the toe of the boot. Hard on the throttle now in the big Lexus, the car which has enjoyed so much success out in America in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Same with the Aston Martin for that matter, actually. Especially with Vasser Sullivan Racing and
as this is the final lap racing of the race.
Yep, as on the final lap as well, the checkered flag has already been waved. Dowski, Adam Kozłowski, Wout of Ley and Martin Schaefer have all crossed the finish line. As Crawford Brown is going to, and Nathaniel Shirley are going to be the next to cross the line now, and now it's going to be a drag race to the line between Erdmann and McDonald, and Erdmann just about holds on to 7th place.
McDonald flashed him on the final corner, or after the final corner.
Yeah, that might well be getting looked at, as that was actually picked up on stream. Note to self, if you're a driver, always assume that your car's the one which the camera crew are focusing on, because
that's quite narcissistic.
Yes, but it also means that if you are caught flashing, then yes, you are going to be caught on camera flashing, and we all know the rules. No flashing. Need I say any more? McDonald's actually had the fastest lap of the race as well, I should add. Then Gillespie, Plate, Mad Al rounding out the top 10. Gerlander, Barton, Atkinson, Vilk, Dahlgren, Brook, Warden, Birch, Hottie, Minga and Wood rounding out the top 20. And then we got Shipston, Mason, Shepherd, Begg, and I can't remember who that was at the end. Oh, sorry, Lenz, Mackie, Kostadinov and Lessentin rounding out the field. Well, that was another spicy race tonight. And no doubt Al has got his work cut out. And what part do these drivers not seem to understand that the live chat does actually get shown post-race on the YouTube stream? Like, seriously, I've already told you lot once.
So, on behalf of RWB, I will apologize for the harsh language in chat currently.
Yes, because some people don't seem to actually understand that this gets shown on screen.
Yeah, it seems to be a difficult concept. That was eventful, to say the least, though.
Yes, it was. It was a phenomenally eventful race in the very, very cold conditions as well, which I think may have played a bit of a part in the utter carnage. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask, which is never a good sign.
Take your time. Don't rush it. No, so we've had an absolutely eventful race. I mean, it must have been absolute hell for the drivers to figure out what the correct temperatures were, how to go through all of their sets and everything else. It's really not easy. It's a difficult task to just get the rubber down right, make certain that you're taking your corners right in the darkness, and then even if your tires are on the correct PSI. The ACC tire model has this thing where it models quite nicely what happens when a tire's too warm or too cold. So when it's too warm, it gets really compliant, which means you'll find yourself sliding a little bit more than what you're used to. And a cold tire is very nervous, so it'll grip in moments you don't expect it to grip, causing tank slappers, for example, or just giving the car a little bit more braking, which will cause it to lock up, kick in the ABS a little bit too much. And change the brake distance. So there's a lot of tiny little details that most people aren't really used to in cold racing, especially since the new tire model dropped, like, I mean, nearly a year ago at this point. So
sorry.
I mean, it gives her an interesting race, because that means that a lot of these drivers that are not used to these types of conditions, that are not used to having a tire colder than where you want it to be, they're suddenly having to deal with a car that doesn't quite behave like what they've been racing with. So that's really interesting. But of course, it goes the same way if you go too warm. You know, it gets over compliant, so the car is going to let its grip go at certain moments where you don't expect it to do so. But I've always found that compliancy is easier to deal with than nervousness, because when a tire is nervous, you don't know when it will grip, and gripping can be really disorientating.
Yeah, I think that was in, what was it, update 1.8, I think they completely redid the tyre model, if I remember correctly. Yeah, because that meant my lap times went from being, oh, yeah, this looks sort of competitive compared to real life, to, oh dearie me, I'm now...
It just feels like it's had like an entire physics overhaul.
It really does feel like it, yeah. The physics absolutely completely changed in the 1.8 update. It certainly feels like it to me. But either way, we've got plenty of racing coming up over the next few weeks. We've got the 27.5k F3 Cup on Thursday night. Then we've got Automobilista All Request Friday. And then the big one, the 10 hours of Watkins Glen on Saturday. The Reds and I will be doing the full broadcast for that, because...
This is going to be fun.
Yep, because doing what we do best. And then we've got the next round of the Constructors' Championship next Tuesday from Kyalami in South Africa. And we also have a new series on the 29th of October on Saturday. The RWB World Touring Car Cup on Race Room, which if the season lasts long enough, might actually outlast the WTCR. We might not actually outlast WTCR, but either way, the final round on the 10th of December is at Macau, I've just realised, which is going to be great to fun to watch. And then on the 19th of November, it's the big one. It's the 12-hour charity race, this year raising money for Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital in London, in the UK. And the sign-ups are still open for that. So that is going to be another race which the dynamic duo will be back in the commentary box for, that being me and Red.
Of course, as always. Wouldn't miss it for the world.
Absolutely. And that has been round 6 of the RWB International Constructors Championship. My thanks to Red Sky and Damien Lowe for joining me, Rob Lomas in the commentary box. Thanks to Nate for hosting the stream, And as always, it's bye for now.